Hello there. Welcome to the Growth Whisperers, where everything we talk about is building enduring great companies, companies that will endure, companies that will achieve greatness through the eyes of many people within and outside the firm as you determine it. Today, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Lawrence. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Brad. I love talking about meetings. I love talking about effective meetings, and I'm really looking forward to this today.
Yeah, the weekly meeting is such an important topic. Looking forward to it myself. And so, as always, one of the things we encourage people to do is to open meetings with a word or phrase of the day. Kevin, what might be on your mind in terms of the word or phrase for today?
Today, it's stimulants. Now, not in the pharmaceutical or drug type stimulants, but stimulants being things that open up different parts of your brains to different things, and how important it is to always be out there seeing, learning, connecting different dots so that your brain continues to see different ways of doing things and opening up doors in your brains to new possibilities. So stimulants in all kinds of different forms that open up your brain. And for me, going to a new city, learning something new, meeting somebody new, they're all wonderful stimulants for my creativity and having an impact on having a better life and thriving at work as well.
Awesome.
Stimulants.
And so for myself, for myself, it's not so much a word or a phrase. I've just been thinking about this book, The 7 Hidden Reasons Employees Leave by Leigh Branham. Now, we spoke about that in an episode.
Yep.
Gee, it must be 3 or 4, 5 months ago. But yeah, like there's been a lot of talk lately about the Great Resignation, whether it's true or not, and how it works and so forth. But one of the things that I specifically love in that book by Leigh Branham is that what's the reason that managers think employees leave? And it's like 91% of people think it's because of money. But then why do employees actually leave? It's like 92% not money.
Yes. It's an amazing book. It's one of my favorite books. It's not widely known, but wow. And I use it in every meeting. I was doing a meeting recently with a team, and we go through and we look at retention of our A players. And, there was 3 A players that had left this company. And I turned to the person they reported, said, okay, so do you know why they really left? And he started to speak, and he just shakes his head. He goes, you set me up. I go, no, I didn't set you up. You just know you were going to give me a BS answer and tell me it was money. And you know that I know the truth, and it wasn't. And he's like, yeah, I know. And so he goes through, so here's the thing around money. But when I look at the 7 hidden reasons, when we dug into it, here's actually why they left. And we had a good chuckle. But, it's an amazing book, 7 Hidden Reasons Employees Leave. So mine was, stimulants and how they have, so stimulants and 7 hidden reasons people leave, Brad. So it's, what are the stimulants that can create engagement or create departure? Because it's, there's different things that stimulate people in their job and make them feel good. And then there's stimulants that make you feel bad. I don't know. I'm really stretching this one. Maybe we should just let's move on.
All right, weekly meeting. We'll get a leave pass there.
The most hated meeting in most companies.
And most valuable meeting often.
When you get it right. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. There might be an asterisk there around the daily huddle, around the most hated meeting. If people don't get it right.
It can be a tie in companies. Yes. Yeah. But the weekly's right up there for the great boring nightmare.
Yeah, but the weekly meeting for a leadership team can be incredibly valuable as well.
It has to be. It's a critical meeting. It's your weekly operational meeting that helps you to stay focused on what matters most. It's so darn important, and they by nature can be very excruciating. So let's dig into the key thing. And Johnny, this is a 60-minute to 90-minute maximum 2-hour meeting every week with you and your team. So we're talking about the one with the CEO and the exec team, but it could be, if you're the head of marketing, it could be you and your direct reports. And it's the key time that you all come together and get synced and deal with what's most important.
Here's another way to think about it. Sorry, Kev. So about 4 or 5 weeks ago, remember we had that quarterly offsite, and we said that these are the most important things for the business.
What were they? What were they?
Yeah. How are we going in relation to that? How are we tracking? We said we were going to do these things. How's that going? And rinse and repeat that conversation 13 weeks until the next quarterly.
And Brad, you've touched on the greatest value of the weekly meeting and the primary purpose. Don't forget the freaking goals.
Yeah.
Remember, we set those goals. We spent 2 days together setting these most important goals. This is our time to be reminded of them and to be making sure that we're making progress on them. And if not, pull up our socks and get them done. So the ideal is not to deal with all the traffic and the noise and all that stuff. It's not a biggest problems meeting. It's make sure we hit the damn goals meeting. And then the whole meeting is structured around that. Make sure that we hit the goals and we calibrate, and make sure we're not missing anything else major in the business. But it's not a weekly problem meeting. It's a weekly, let's get refocused and recalibrated so we win by achieving our major goals meeting.
Yeah. I remember there was I started to do a bit of work with a multinational engineering firm, and they would have people fly from 4 continents to come together for a meeting on a regular basis. And I know this is about the weekly, but I said to them, so, what is the agenda? How does it work? And it was 100% operational. There was nothing about strategy and nothing about priorities. And they didn't have weekly meetings. And that absence meant that they were, I'm not going to say just fumbling. They were doing okay, but they were just stuck in the cogs.
They'd be living Groundhog Day again and again and again, because if you don't do something different, i.e. lay down a better foundation or improve a strategy or improve a process, the same junk keeps coming up.
Yeah.
Man, we're passionate about this one.
Yes, we are. Here's how passionate. We've got a few episodes as reference points. Number 1, episode 58, collective intelligence. We're going to talk about that in a moment. It's the key to a successful weekly meeting. Next is episode 43, the top 7 best practices for weekly meetings. And then finally, episode 20, how to make weekly meetings more effective. So yeah, we're passionate about it because this is how you execute, or how best you execute, your quarterly goals. And your quarterly goals is what gives you momentum and traction.
Yep, absolutely. So it's an absolutely critical meeting, often misunderstood, mismanaged. The ones that are the worst, I call them the fall asleep meetings or get your email done meetings, where people are just rambling on, giving their update reports. And you can't blame them, because they're just doing what they think they should. And that means the person that's in charge of the meeting and running the meeting has failed them, because they're just bringing what they think is important, and yet it ain't the most important thing. So let's jump into the meeting. And, and one of the things I want to start out with, our team, we have our weekly meeting. We have ours an hour and 15 every Monday evening. And they end up happening probably 11 to 12 times a quarter, because if there's a holiday, we don't do them. We skip it that week. That's where our team does it. Some move it to a different day. But we also start off with something that's both a win and positive.
Yeah.
And a question. Everyone's got a different start. But our team is, we only get to see each other once a year because we're, distributed around the country. Well, I think everyone's from Canada at this point. But we have to talk about what's a highlight. What's a highlight and how does it relate to the core values? So we're bringing that, positive as part of our check-in. We also actually rate where we're at 0 to 10, so people can kind of really tell the truth about where they're at in their world. So where are you at? What's a win? And then we have a question every week. We have these thing called coachagories that our team created. It's a Lawrence and Co thing we've got, which has got a different question to answer. And everyone, goes around and answers it. So it's a chance to connect a little bit. And that's not for everyone. That's how we do it, to really get the meeting grounded in positivity and connection with each other.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's a starting point, is something to set the right tone for the meeting. And then really digging into the first thing is, are we on track, for this month's plan, which is our numbers and KPIs? That's what we're trying to do initially. many companies might have a mini financial review, maybe a revenue and a units type number that would give them a sense. And any operational KPIs that are critical, just seeing how is the business tracking to make sure we don't have an ugly surprise at the end of the month.
No, we don't want any surprises. So what's red, what's amber, what's green, how are we tracking? And that may create other questions at the collective intelligence part later on in the meeting.
Correct.
So why is it that sales keeps dropping, 3 to 5% every week? Like this is we got to dig into this, or whatever it might be. But
correct.
Point being, we're starting with good news, then we're moving on to the numbers, some hard stuff to get through, and so that everyone is on the same page. Yep. Then we're moving on to I've lost my place. Then we're moving on to the quarterly priorities. Are we on track for this month's plan? So where are we at in terms of the quarterly priorities that we've set for the company? Now, we've got slightly different way that each of us does this. So for you, Kevin, I understand that primarily at the weekly, you'll be advocating that people are only working on the top 3 to 5 priorities for the company and giving a status update on that.
Yeah, we normally allot 10 minutes to the agenda maximum. And it's, okay, what are some progress you've made on that quarterly priority? Again, this happens every week. Where might you be stuck and need some assistance? And then what are you going to do next? So with those 5 priorities in 5 to 10 minutes maximum, we can have them all completely reviewed and know that we're on track, or know what we're going to do to recalibrate to get on track.
Yeah. So slightly different view on this. I'm advocating that teams would go through generally the quarterly priorities. So each person would have 1, maybe 2 minutes to say, I'm on track for number 1, I'm behind on number 2, I've completed number 3, or whatever.
Right. So to clarify the distinction you're saying, Brad, I would go through just the company. Yep. You're going through the company, and then either each individual team or each individual executive's additional 3 to 5 priorities that they own.
Yeah, but we're still trying to get that done in about 10 to 15 minutes. And let's be really clear. This is a status update, and then that may create who, what, whens, or separate meetings or separate chats, or let something spin down into collective intelligence. But this is a status update. This is not about solving problems at that point.
And to get clear, so in the case where we're moving the company one's an example I work with, it's 10 minutes and we're reviewing 5 goals. It's very, very quick. And people might provide a little bit of extra context, but in 10 minutes, we're through everything. And Brad's would go even quicker, because in 10 minutes, they're covering the company 5 plus the individual or the department 5s. So it has to be very succinct. So basically, there's no time to bore people to tears.
Yeah. So what I advocate people do is say last 7, next 7. So
I love that model.
Company priority 1. This is what I did in the last 7 days. This is what I need to do in the next 7 days. So because in terms of peer accountability, it's quite difficult when every week you have a documented thing that said, I did nothing in the last 7 days. I did nothing in the last 7 days. I did nothing. After a while, that gets a bit frustrating for the rest of the team, and it encourages them to pipe up.
Yeah, and in my case, as I showed, it would be the progress. Where might you be stuck and what's next? Similar model, same type of thinking. And if you have no progress to report, just like you, that means nothing happened in the last 7.
Yeah.
So that is a critical piece to review. And then we get into any customer or employee data that we might have. So again, what are we hearing? Anything different from any customers or employees? And it might be about key hires or someone getting onboarded, but we got to pay attention to those 2 key stakeholders that we're constantly trying to manage. Again, pretty straightforward. We want to have a little bit of data, and then we drop into the big value of we call collective intelligence. What are those strategic discussions or debates that we're going to deal with? And it's 30, 45, 60 minutes of the team coming together around something. So interestingly, with our internal team, again, we take the same framework, but what we do is 1 week we have collective intelligence, and it could be someone presenting a project that has to do with the quarterly priorities, like a deeper dive saying, hey, here's the model and gathering feedback. We're building some new models around people and strategy that, we're getting feedback around. But then we alternate it that every second week it's education, because we're a learning organization. And so there is a bit of training every second week. So 1 week is strategic discussions, deep ones. And this alternate week is learning, where someone from the team is teaching something else. And then we always have room for little tactical things that need to get addressed, right? It's like a short term, hey, people need to be aware of something, or I need some assistance on short term tactical stuff, all in that collective intelligence time frame. Again, it's not that we recommend everyone does learning every couple of weeks. Most organizations aren't, coaching and consulting firms, and don't need to do that. Or that might not be in their DNA to do that much of it. There's usually enough topics that the team needs to debate that can be handled in a weekly meeting anyways.
What matters is the timings. So we would encourage people to be very disciplined. For example, review of the numbers, you want 10 minutes only.
Yes.
Not 11, not 12,
not the 47-page deck the CFO has.
Nope.
And not even the 15 minutes on the one page that people would want to tell you. It's short time, and often using a timer to assist.
Yeah. An A player, a good, healthy team member doesn't need to spend 20 minutes telling you in a subverted manner why they're a good, why they're performing well. It's just like, yeah, I'm green.
Right.
I'm executing.
Unless that's what they think they're supposed to do and they have the bad habit of the long update. But yes, most people like to be succinct, but cultures erode into these crazy long presentations.
So when we say 1 to 2 hours in terms of timing, that depends on the size of the business and what works. But when you set the time, don't go over. So when we're looking at the review of the numbers, or the review of the priorities, or even the collective intelligence or the customer employee data, have a time allocated for that agenda item, and don't go on. Like, we need to stick to the timings to have an effective meeting.
Yep. And these things need to be reset. We just updated our team's weekly agenda. We made some tweaks to make it suit us, and we reset the time. We actually shaved 15 minutes off it, which most of the time that we're able to do. But it takes discipline. And generally, the weekly meeting needs a regular tune-up. You have to keep refining it to keep it working, because when it operates the same way for a long time, most companies, they seem to degrade or erode. So if yours is a little rough, don't worry about it. Pull out the agenda, get a couple people to work on it, tighten it up a little bit, and reset it, and away you go, and dial it back into being a great meeting again.
Yeah. A good meeting closes on time.
Yes.
And that,
speaking of closing, going ahead, Brad.
No, and no, all I was going to say, and that means that you're looking at the time as the person who owns the meeting all the way through. Are we on track for this agenda item?
Yep.
So speaking of closing, you were going to say.
Well, and I'll add one more point in, and as the person that normally leads our team meetings, it's hard to keep a meeting. You got to keep a focus on it, and we have found consistently using timers allows you to win, because you get 10 people in a group. People love to share, and if you're not reminding people of that, it will go on. People can go quick, they can go slow, and they can even go on forever. And it's our job to manage that and keep the meeting moving. That's why someone calls running the meeting, not observing the meeting. Okay, well, let's wrap up. So the weekly meeting, we could go on about this. As Brad mentioned, there's a few other episodes you can dig into, like episode 43, the top 7 best practices for weekly meetings, or 20, how to make weekly meetings more effective. The key is, and we'll go through this here, is that it's 1 to 2 hours, and don't bore people to death, please. Start off with something positive to bring the team into the room and get focused. We have a check-in with where you're at, and good news is our typical that we use, but there's lots of other different ones. I prefer that one. And then, and basically, number 1 is making sure we're on track with the plan for the month. Are we hitting our financials and KPIs? And then going and reviewing the actual priorities and where are we at? And Brad has the next 7, what I do and what I'm going to do. or you could do, your progress stocks and what's next. But it's a very quick 10 or 15-minute review of the company level goals. And in Brad's case, he likes to even go into the executive or team level goals. Brad, you want to grab the last couple there?
Yeah. And so once we've reviewed the quarterly priorities, we move on to customer employee data. Now, that may be a little bit less when you don't have the sophistication of the qualitative and the quantitative systems at the beginning, but this is best practice. If you don't have Net Promoter, if you don't have ENPS, Start, Stop, Keep, or 4Q, maybe start monthly, or maybe start, what have you heard? What have you heard out in the marketplace? So then we move on to collective intelligence. And that's where we either have a presentation from someone or we collate the items in the car park that we collect through the weekly meeting. Of course, we've done a episode 58 on collective intelligence. You can dig deeper into that. What a good chat. What a good chat, Kevin. We do love the importance of the weekly meeting, because we know that's where the real traction happens. And if you have to start somewhere, this is the spot in terms of execution that can make the biggest difference.
You got 13 weeks to make sure you achieve your most important goals in the company. And this is the key value driver of getting those done, keeping us aligned, and making sure we move ahead. All right. Well, thanks for listening. This is the Growth Whispers podcast with Kevin and Brad. We both have newsletters that we share every week in addition to other resources. So to learn more about Brad and how he can help you and get his newsletter, evolutionpartners.com.au. And for myself and our firm, Lawrence & Co., again, you can get our newsletter or other resources there. We love to help. You just go to lawrenceandco.com. Hope you have a great week and that your weekly meeting is also great. Have a good one. See ya.